Welcome to the second part of our grievance discussion. In part one, we spoke about why grievances arise, the process to follow, and the importance of sticking to this process, who manages grievances, being objective and the importance of objectivity, common mistakes that managers and sometimes employees make during the grievance process, and how different employees see the grievance process through an EDI lens. Over to you, Vanessa.
I also think there's some common mistakes around being really clear about the outcome of the grievance process, right? There are different potential outcomes to a grievance process. You can either uphold what the employee is saying, completely set it aside, or partially uphold the grievance complaint. And when you are making the decision, it is imperative that you explain clearly to the employee why, right? Giving them some detailed evidence as to why it has been upheld, set aside, or partially upheld. And when again, this depends, right? Because there's so much that you can tell the employee who's made the allegation. If the allegation has been made, potentially is upheld and leads to disciplinary action, you're not necessarily going to go back to that employee who made that allegation and give them the rundown of the disciplinary action that you're going to take with that employee that was the allegation was against, because then you're breaching into somebody else's personal data and information, right? But you need to be able to explain to some points why it has been upheld, partially or set aside. So I think it's really important that you're clear on that, both for the employee that's made the allegation, but also the employee that is on the receiving end of it. If it's an employee, right? Because sometimes it's not the employee, it's a process, it's a policy.
Yeah.
So let's give some tips for a fair grievance process. How would we advise individuals to make it fair and equitable and make sure the process is managed well? Temini.
Tips. Thank you. So I say take it seriously from the start, like we've mentioned. Just because you may feel it's not a valid issue, or because you guys have a lot of deadlines, you're quite busy as a company, this is something that kind of puts a halt, in the wheels. You don't pick and choose what we deal with. That's that employee's grievance. We take it seriously from the start. But even with taking it seriously, sometimes let's also explore things informally. Just because we have explored it informally does not mean it's not being taken seriously. A lot of issues can actually be solved by just having that informal and transparent conversation before it, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Before it becomes like a bigger issue, and a grievance, which again is what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, and I think also it's really important to gather all relevant evidence, and this may include, doing an investigation. Okay, so person A has said this. We need to investigate it. We can't just say, okay, yeah, and then just, do the meeting. So I think it's really important to make sure we are investigating thoroughly, getting all the evidence, and making sure whoever is hearing the grievance is impartial. And what we mean by that is we don't want someone who's involved doing the hearing if we can avoid it, because sometimes the company is too small and there's no other option. But where we can, make sure whoever's hearing the grievance is impartial.
Yeah, I agree. Can we please all make sure we have a grievance policy in place? There's obviously, for employers who don't have policies and processes in place, you've got really wonderful tools from the ACAS website. They've got some great templates there for individuals to use, but you need to have a policy in place. If you are running an organization that supports their people, wants to ensure you look after people's well-being, and you want to ensure that people feel like they have a voice that contributes to the organization, make sure the policy is in place so that people can see how and where to raise this. And hopefully, to Temini's point earlier, it will delay the need for always going straight into formal. You might be able to have these informal discussions first. The next thing for me is about ensuring that there's good psychological safety. And what do I mean by that? It means that an individual can raise a grievance without fear of risk to their role, risk to their relationships, risk of progression. Individuals should be able to raise grievances where they have genuine concerns about something that's affecting them in the organization, or something that could become bigger into perhaps whistleblowing that could affect your organization overall. So think about what you have in place to create psychological safety for those who are raising the grievance. And this could be about who they report the grievance to, how the grievance procedure is written, where they put those first allegations and complaints. Really think about that. And then finally, for me, obviously, I'm always going to centre inclusion. Grievance affects people in different ways. Different people from an intersectional lens and perspective will react to a grievance, whether it's the person who is at the center of the allegation or the person making the allegation. People react in different ways. So always think inclusively. How do different individuals, how will they experience this policy? What do they need to, how do you need to write the policy so that it's supportive, inclusive, and supports everybody based on their intersectional lenses through any sort of grievance proceedings, whether they are the ones making the grievance or the ones on the receiving end. So, but I'm always going to talk about inclusion, aren't I?
Mm-hmm. And I think just to tag on to the end of that, actually, that also includes when these investigation meetings are happening. If someone would much rather have the questions before the meeting so it gives them time to process, that could be something that an organisation implements, to allow that inclusivity as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Not all employees do well in face-to-face meetings where allegations are set to them, and there are adjustments that can be made for the different learning styles, for individuals with different needs to have grievance meetings. So don't continuously fall back on the normal way, right? The traditional model. If we want to be equitable as employees, we've got to disrupt our usual ways of thinking. We can't think in the same way. And that means when you're holding grievance procedures, you need to be willing to disrupt the usual way of doing things in order to be more equitable to the individuals who are involved around it, while still upholding your company values and brands and the way that you want to do things,
Absolutely. So to wrap up, we spoke about grievances today. We spoke about the common mistakes managers make and how to manage grievances properly to ensure they are carried out fairly, efficiently, and with best practice.
Thanks, Serena. What did we do today, Temini?
Well, we spoke about grievances, common mistakes that managers. Oh my God. Right. That's the end, isn't it, girls? Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks for listening. We hope you gained some valuable information today. We can be found on all social media platforms with our handle, A Little Bit of HR. If you still need further help or want to find out more, then get in touch for a free 20-minute consultation discussion with any one of us by booking online at www.alittlebitofhr.com.